Coast FM 963. I have Carlos Camacho here with me today in the studio. Hi, Carlos.
Hello, Deb.
Lovely to see you again.
Yeah, same here.
All your fans can't wait either. You have many.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, they're all outside waiting for you.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I haven't read what they have on the sign, so hopefully it's nice things.
Yeah. Well, today we're speaking about facing your fears because I was telling you a bit of a personal story, which is like so exciting to me. My dad turned 90 on Tuesday and he did 2 jumps, skydives up at Belmont.
Whoa.
9:30 and then 10, like one after the other.
Oh,
he raised money for prostate cancer and that was the goal, but also to face his fears because he's scared of flying and he thought if he's never going to do it now, well...
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So what are your takes on facing your fears? What do you think to do? Just go head on into your fear?
Look, what I do know is that the difference between success and failure, or successful people and people that aren't successful, if there is one significant difference, is the fear of failure.
Okay. Because they say that the worst thing about fear is fear itself.
You fear in a way.
Yeah.
And just like people have anxiety about getting anxiety.
Yes.
And so forth. And so they avoid situations where they may feel that anxiety or that fear.
Or that failure.
That's exactly, and ultimately to fail. Yeah, that's right. The one significant difference between success and failure is the fear of failure itself. And so a lot of people don't try to start off with because they're afraid of failure. And so what happens is that they avoid situations and therefore they also have or decrease the probability of success because unless you absolutely try, then you cannot win.
That's right, because he could have got up in there in the aircraft and said, "Oh, I'm too scared to jump now."
That's right.
And that would have been a failure to him. So,
and a bit like we were talking about last week, Deb, about resolutions, wasn't it? Where we actually used the analogy of jumping off a rock into a lake, and once you say it out loud, you got to do it. And in a way, your father, he was in a position where he already said he was going to do it.
Yes.
He was strapped up.
Told everybody.
He had Dick Smith supporting him.
Yes, he did.
The whole eyes of the world were on him.
NBN television up there watching him.
That's right. And so it's... good on him. He didn't back down. He could have. No one would have said anything, of course.
Yes.
And everyone would have respected that. And he locked it in. And, wow, to face the fear of flying, to face the fear of heights at 90 years of age and jump out of a plane in tandem, of course, is just, look, it's giving me goosebumps now as a psychologist, as a motivator. It doesn't get much better than that.
Okay. So, do you have fears?
We all have fears, don't we? I think the older we get, if you're doing things right, you start fearing less.
Yes.
I think. Of course, that's only my perspective. But if you're doing things right and you start having a certain insight, but more importantly, a certain philosophy towards life, and that may be with regards to how you're going to live your life and how you're going to confront consequences that are negative, you start fearing less, because if you start thinking of the worst scenario possible that can happen if you attempt something, then you realize when you put things on a balance, it's not that significant. One example, I talk to a lot of young men, teenagers and in their 20s, a lot of them, and some good-looking, successful, well-built young men have this anxiety about talking to women, and they find it's like jumping out of a plane for them, literally. And they have this anxiety, they feel intimidated, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're very nice young men, but they just can't confront that fear.
Take that first step.
And the first thing I start off is you say, okay, you're at a bar and you see this girl and she gives you a bit of a sign. What's the worst thing that can happen if you approach her and ask her for a cup of coffee or to buy a drink? The worst thing that can happen is that she says no. What's the best thing? The best thing is that she's your soulmate and you fall in love and you have a wonderful family for the rest of your life. If you put those two things on a balance, what you can gain and what you could lose, it's insignificant. The fact that if you fail, if she says no, it's not going to change your life. But if she says yes,
it will change your life.
And that's just one example. That's the same whether it's going for a job, whether it's approaching someone, whether it's deciding to create something, whether it's deciding to change your life, to get out of a relationship and so forth. Now, the thing with jumping out of a plane
not everyone
different.
does it.
The worst thing that can happen is pretty bad.
Yes.
So that's why people find those type of situations difficult, and that's why now your father is my hero.
You've jumped too.
I've jumped, yes, and I'll do it again. And in a way, I regret not having done the second one straight up because I was on fire. And yeah, it's such a wonderful feeling. I am going to do it again one day. And as you know, I did it for my 50th, and I did raise money for depression and so forth.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, and I want to do it again, and maybe try to advertise it a bit more and so forth. But look, it's this time around I'm going to enjoy the actual jump itself, those first 5 seconds before you open the parachute. Yeah, I'm going to enjoy that, the free fall.
It's the longest seconds in your life, isn't it?
It's a long time free falling. I did it off 14,000 feet, so you had a bit of a free fall. But those first couple of seconds where you roll out, you don't know what to expect. The second time, you do.
It should be better.
Yeah. But I think, look, facing your fears are very important. You don't necessarily need to jump out of a plane.
They
That's
don't
just
have to
an
be
added.
big ones, do they?
They don't have to be big ones.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just little small things like approaching someone, saying hello.
Yes.
Or even something that may be even less significant. Like I treat a lot of people that find fearful just walking outside.
Yes, that would be so debilitating.
It is. And as you know, it's just a state of mind, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a state of mind.
Talk yourself into it.
You talk yourself into it, and you start putting on the balance the worst that can happen, and you start inventing things that can happen. And sure, many things can happen, but you've got to ask yourself, what's the probability of it happening? That's why people still jump out of planes, because the probability of the parachute not opening is tiny.
Okay.
You have a far better chance of having a car crash going to
Yes.
the airport where you're going to jump off
Yes.
than actually that happen. That's why people still do it, or else it would be illegal to jump out of a plane.
That's right.
The probability of it not opening is very, 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 very small. And so, sure, I could cross the road and get hit by a car. Sure, that girl could say no. Sure, I could not get that job. Or if I leave this person who's abusive, I may not get or find someone that loves me. That is a probability, but it's tiny. And that's what we have to convince our brains.
And that's what life is about, isn't it? Like the unknown.
It's the unknown.
It can be exciting, the unknown.
Don't allow that very, very small probability to affect your decision of doing it or trying.
Okay. And as you said, the person that's afraid to walk outside, if they thought to themselves, what am I going to gain, rather than, I can walk up the road, smell a flower, see a bird, say hello to someone, other than the option of staying inside and being fearful. But when you're in that fear, it's very hard to talk yourself out of it sometimes.
That's exactly right. Some people have a clinical condition that we call agoraphobia, which they fear crowds, they fear outdoors and so forth. And there's claustrophobia, as you know, as well, which is pretty much the opposite, but all based on fear.
Yes.
All based on fears. We need fear. We're mammals in a way.
Yes.
Not in a way, we are.
We are.
And we're still part of the animal kingdom. And all mammals have fears, and that's part of survival. If we didn't have fears, then we probably would have been extinct by now. So fears are good.
Right.
It's good to have limits, to be conservative in nature for some things. But our brain hasn't developed enough to include other things such as fun, recreation into the picture. So, hang on. That is not fun, jumping out of a plane.
Yeah.
It's risky. Therefore, I'm going to give you lots of anxiety and fear so you don't do it.
Yes.
But once you do it, just like getting into a car and driving to your work, sure, it could be fearful. And it is for some people that have had accidents, we call them traumas, don't we?
Yes.
Post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
It can become quite complex. We have to put things all on a balance and say, okay, what's the probability of this happening again or happening the first time? And you'll find that most things usually are in your favor, and as long as there's a good chance of you enjoying yourself and not putting yourself at risk, I would say go for it and do it.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Face your fears and change your world.
Face your fears, change your world, and in the process, you change the world too.
That's right. And the song we've chosen, or you've chosen, Carlos, is very apt to this conversation, isn't it?
It sure is. I love this band, Van Halen, and it's Jump.
On Coast FM 963.